Alright, in this video we're going to take a quick look at when a conditional statement is false. So up until now we've looked at a lot of conditional statements and just sort of assumed that they were true. So there's this, if something, then something. And in all these cases we say, well, if the if part is true, then the then part is true. So if this part is true, we can then conclude that the then part is true. But that's not always the case. And sometimes a conditional statement can turn out to be false. And here's an example that I often think of when I think about this kind of thing. I think about the statement, let's see, if I flip the switch, then the light comes on. Right. So imagine I've got here's my switch, right? And here's my light bulb over here. And if I suppose there's a wire connecting them. Okay. So in the event that I flip the switch and the light comes on, then this statement is true. I flipped the switch and the light came on. If I don't flip the switch, then the light might not come on. I suppose that wouldn't affect this statement because it says if I flip the switch. So if I don't flip the switch and the light doesn't come on, well, that doesn't disprove my statement. On the other hand, if I don't flip the switch and the light does come on anyway, well, that doesn't really affect my statement either, because it's possible, I suppose, that over here somewhere there is another switch. I mean, who doesn't have a light bulb in the house like this that's connected to the light? Maybe someone flipped that switch. So if I don't flip the switch and the light still comes on, again, that doesn't disprove my statement. So in either case, if I flip the switch and the light does come on, or if I don't flip the switch and the light does come on, then I'm okay. And if I don't flip the switch and the light doesn't come on, then I'm still okay. So really, there's only this one situation, and that's if I flip the switch and nothing happens. Then we have a problem and the statement isn't true. So let's go here, and I'm going to label these two parts of our statement. The if part, we'll call it P, and the then part, we'll call it Q, and the entire statement together is P implies Q. And let's make a little truth table to take a look at how this works. So first, in our truth table, we have P, and then we have Q, and then we have P implies Q. I'll make a little table here. Now, P could be true, and Q could be true. Let's see, P could be true and Q could be false. P could be true or false, sorry, and Q true. And we could have P being false and Q also being false. So this is every different combination of true and false for the two statements. So let's take a look at the first one. P being true and Q being true, that's where I turn the light on, I flip the switch, and the light comes on. And in that case, our conditional statement is true. It's true that I flipped the switch, then the light came on. And here, if I say, well, I flipped the switch, that's P being true, but the light didn't come on. Well, that's the case for our conditional statement. If I flip the switch, then the light comes on. Well, it turns out to be false. Doesn't work. Next we have if P is false and Q is true. So this is where it's not true. I did not flip the switch, but it turned out to be true that the light came on. And that's where, well, this other switch could have been flipped. So that doesn't affect our original statement about this switch. So in this case, we've got the conditional statement is still true. And the next one, we've got the situation where P is false and Q is false. So this is where, well, I did not flip the switch and the light did not come on. Well, what do you expect? And so it's still true that if I flip the switch, then the light comes on. We have not provided a counterexample here or anything like that. So here, if I don't flip the switch and the light doesn't come on, that doesn't affect the truth of our original statement. So it's true. So here you'll notice that there's kind of a, the only time a conditional statement is false, I'm going to write this down. Let's move this up here a second. Here. Okay. The only time a conditional statement is false is when the hypothesis is true, but the conclusion is false. So the only time this if-then statement turns out to be the whole if-then statement itself, not the two parts separately, but the whole statement all together, the only time that that's going to turn out to be false is if the hypothesis part is true, but the conclusion part turns out to be false. And in reality, you only need one example of this. So if I say that if I flip the light on, or if I flip the switch, then the light turns on, for that statement to be true, it has to be true 100% of the time. If I ever, even once, flip the switch and the light doesn't come on, then the statement is false. And that would be a single counterexample. Alright, and that is the only time when a conditional statement itself, the if-then statement altogether, turns out to be false.